Who's ready to see a beautiful chess game? This game is a Spanish, a Ruy Lopez, played by Ding Liren when he was 2,800. Absolute tank. This guy was a menace to society. His opponent, Leinier Dominguez Perez, a 2,700 Super GM, as you guys probably all know. He's 2,700, knows how to checkmate with the king and queen for sure. It's played in 2016. The Ruy Lopez, the Spanish, is the oldest opening in chess. We are going to look at Dr. Ding getting surgical today. We're back in the humble abode. We're getting into the game. You guys probably know all these moves. Bishop to b5, officially now the Spanish. April's going to be a big month. You might have seen me slack in March. I didn't slack. I wanted some time off. I chilled. I booled, relaxed. And now we're back. Good break's always good. Too much chess is unhealthy. I'll tell you that much. Bishop to b5 and pawn to a6, kicking out the bishop. All right, so we're going to delve into everything. All the intricacies, not all because it's chess, right? We know that game is impossible. Why does white not take this pawn? Why does he not snap the bishop off and then take the pawn? Well, the reason is queen to d4, aiming at the knight, stopping d4, aiming at e4. You win a pawn with check. You're going to castle queenside. It's kind of like the Stafford gambit, but you're not down a pawn, so it's not a gambit. We're getting definitional today. So it's a good game for black. This game, amazing. Good stuff. So he retreats the bishop. We get knight to f6, knight to c3, and pawn to b5, kicking out the bishop now. Bishop to c5, development, and castles. What's fascinating about the Ruy Lopez, this is the Morphy defense, by the way, is that in the middle game, there's 10 different ways to keep the position equal, and then there's 10 different responses to keep it equal from then. You might be like, oh, so it's boring. No, it's beautiful. Imagine this opening without engines. I mean, there's a reason it's the oldest opening in chess, right? Knight f3, attack pawn. Knight c6, defend pawn. Bishop to b5, attack knight. That's defending pawn, right? Caveman chess. Bada bing, bada boom. We get castles, kingside, pawn to d3, setting up this nice pawn chain, untying the knight from guarding e4. So many intricacies. h6. Why h6? You know, a lot of my students, even in the Italian, they have some tournament games. Usually, typically, it only happens once because then you learn from your mistakes and you don't do it again. If you like to learn, if you care to learn, that's typically what happens, and that's how you become a better person. Bishop to g5 is an annoying pin, especially when they exploit it with knight to d5, and then they can double up your g-pawns. It's not a fantastic day all the time over there. So h6, you dismiss any pins. Nobody likes pins. They don't like it at the 2,800 level, not at the 1,800 level, not at the 800 level, not at the 100 level. If that exists, I don't even know if that exists. Actually, it does exist. Knight to d5, jumping into the position, and pawn to d6. Right, he got his bishop out of the pawn chain, so now he can close it and have an active bishop with a nice little pawn chain. It's good stuff. Now, the main move here is c3, but we get a4 by Dominguez. An aggressive-looking move. How would you deal with a4? Do not take, because that isolates your pawn. Gives him tempo, gives him development. So don't do that. So what else should you do? I do like the move he played. That is rook to b8, right? Allowing white to claim the file, but there's no good way to use the file. Other moves are b4. That's another move you could say, though that does give up c4 for the long term. So maybe envision some trade and to go claiming c4, f5. b4 is just a very committal move. Not to mention c3, the tension will help white. Aside from that, I mean, you could ignore it. You could go bishop to g4. There's a bunch of stuff you could do. But rook to b8, applicable. I think good move. Nice move by Ding. We got takes, and bishop to e3. What do you do? Well, let's say you say take the bishop. Fine move, as you could see. However, after the move knight takes, queen takes, f takes, I believe white's connection onto black's king is better than black's connection onto white's king. Right? I think that's a fair point to be made. So we get knight takes d5. And now again, what do you take back with? What do you take? Let's say bishop takes bishop. Do you take that back? I don't think so. Not the nicest pawn structure. So knight to f4. Jump your knight into the position. You gain a tempo on the bishop. The bishop comes back. You go queen f6. Again, you see the bar is balanced. That's the nice thing about the Spanish, or not so nice. But what I like about it is you enter move like 30 with all the pieces on the board, so you can only memorize, study so much. And if it's relatively balanced, it becomes a positional battle between who rotates over better. So may the best man win, right? What's that word I'm thinking of? There's a word I'm thinking of, but I can't think of it. So I'll think of it one day when I'm not recording. That's how life works. So do you take with the pawn or the bishop? Merit based. Yes, that's the word. And I am recording. So you should take with the bishop, right? Duh. Right? Bishop on an open file. It's a good bishop. He takes with the pawn. I'm not so sure why. Right? You kind of just destroy the bishop's diagonal. Not such a good move. It does gain a tempo on the knight. He snaps off the bishop first, then moves the knight, and we get pawn to e4, creating a pawn chain, but also creating a hole, right? There's good things and bad things to everything. Pawn chain, good thing. Hole, bad thing. What are you thinking of as black? Are you thinking on the queen side or the king side? Hopefully you're thinking on the king side, right? Moves like f5, knight to g6 come to mind. He goes knight to g6. You're going to jump into f4 later. f5 is still an idea. We got queen d2, pawn f5. By the way, my microphone is in the camera view, but the ceiling is out of the camera view. So I think that makes more sense. Right? I was looking at the ceiling. I was like, it doesn't look too nice. So now you get the microphone, right? It's good stuff. Fun facts. Rook to a7. This is where he makes a mistake. What he should have done, granted hard move to play, is e takes f5. We would get bishop takes f5. And it's a game. I would rather play with the black side. What about you? I think it's hard to argue. Right? Why did Dominguez do this to his bishop? I don't understand. So rook to a7. Aiming at the pawn. Okay, tying down the queen. But it's a stretch, right? If the pawn wasn't on the c7, then it'd be maybe super nice. But it is on c7 and it doesn't have to move. And it's not going to move. Ding opens up the f file. Bishop to g4. Look at this precision. What do you do here? This is very instructive. Positional motifs. There are many. Have you ever heard of a bad bishop versus a good knight? That is what this is, right? That's a good knight. That's a bad bishop. So, trade everything else off. Bishop takes, rook takes, queen g5. Opens up the rook to be able to come to f8. He doesn't so much care about losing this pawn because you're just getting in. You are indeed just getting in. So we got rook to a1. He has to guard the back rank. Rook to f8, kicking the queen. Do you want a queen trade? Be very bad. White is better. Crazy. Right? Doubled pawns. White is better. Why is white better? Let's dig into it. Well, you're going to get here again. You're going to get c3, bishop d1, bishop g4. Look at that. I just thought of that on the fly. And then you cover f4 because the pawn on g3 is good. Good stuff. Good job. Queen g3, we get queen to d2. That's a brilliancy, apparently. I wouldn't give it a brilliancy. This is a nice move. Queens on the second. They say rooks on the second are good, so queens on the second might also be good. We got queen to e1, queen to d. I am pumped to start live streaming. It's not going to be brain rot. Well, as you can see, it's a little bit of brain rot. It's just like, I don't know, goofy. But I am pumped to start streaming. I think that's going to be good. And that is what the month of April entails. And it's March 28th. So mark your calendars. King to h1. We get queen takes b2. Ding's like, I know it's a poison pawn, but I don't care. I'm Dr. Ding. I got the antidote. I'm scooping up a pawn. So the rook moves. The queen goes to a3. The queen comes to e3. And then the knight finally jumps into f4. Good stuff. Pawn g3. This is exactly how to use knights. Especially, this bishop cannot be used at all. You use knights by inducing weaknesses. Or make your knight induce weakness. Every time they push a pawn, they weaken their position. You bounce around with their knight. You're creating holes. You're rotating into the holes that you created. You're aiming at bases of pawn chains. And then you're coordinating on the f-file. You might be like, this guy just hung a knight. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. King, that's h3 because he was afraid of boom. And we get another brilliancy. So this guy's just the greatest. He was a world champion, believe it or not. Queen takes knight, queen takes rook. So white needs to move the queen. That is not checkmate because the knight hangs. But now you're setting up a little bit of a mating box. So the king moves to escape mate. We got check, king moves, queen c3. Nice move, aiming at g3, trying to find some connection on the king. We got king f5. He scoops up a pawn. Is he playing till checkmate? Are we getting a top level player playing till check? No, we're not. But it was checkmate in one move. Okay, maybe two moves. Maybe he goes queen g4. Yeah, so he survives another move, but he didn't play it. He resigned. Respect to Ding. This is the old Ding. These are the games you should look at by Ding Liren. He was a fantastic player. He's still a good player, but on his best days, he really is one of the best. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We're going to be consistent because we're back. We are back. As always, have a great day. Thank you for all the emails of games. I know today's Friday. Next Friday, we have a lot of games to review from subs. Keep sending them in. I'll post my email down below. Have a great day. Peace, guys. Boom.